Thursday, the 29th of January in the year 2026. Thank you so much for making the time to be a part of tonight's edition of This Day. I'm your host. My name is Andrew Mwansa. Zambia's macroeconomic indicators are pointing in the right direction. Inflation has reduced to a single digit from 11.2% now to 9.4%. The economy is projected to grow by 5.8% as of end of December 2026. But also the currency, the Zambian kwacha, has been one of the best performing currencies in the world the past few weeks. The big question is, what have we done right as a country? Earlier on, I sat down with economist Dr. Lubinda Haabazoka, who responded to these questions. Dr. Lubinda Haabazoka, good evening. Thank you so much for making the time to be part of tonight's edition of This Day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Inflation has dropped to a single digit from 11.2% to 9.4%. Must we be celebrating as a country?
Well, of course, inflation is defined as the rate at which prices are growing. So when the rate at which prices are growing reduces, it's something to celebrate about. And you know that the most harmful inflation is that one which is above 10%. When you go below the double digit, that is within 6 to 8%, that is called useful inflation, meaning it gives an incentives for businesses to be able to produce more because they have seen that prices of goods in the sectors where they are operating from is growing. But if the rate at which the prices are growing is very high, then it means that prices are not matching income growth, and that in itself causes a threat to the economy because people won't be able to consume goods and services because prices have sharply gone up.
We always talk about the 6 to 8% target band in terms of inflation. Every time we are drafting our budget as a country, what normally is our target is that we need to reduce inflation between 6 to 8. But we, realistically speaking, never achieve this target band. Why do we aim for this target band when we know for a fact that we will not achieve it?
Well, first of all, the definition of inflation has what is known as useful inflation, which is around those same percentages that I've mentioned. And that is a target of inflation for each and every country. In the developed world, that can even mean 3 to 4%. But also reduction in prices, deflation is also harmful, as we are seeing in the case of Japan. So the reason why we pick those percentages as economists is that realistically salaries grow between 5 to 10%. So the growth of salaries should be slightly higher than the growth of inflation rate. But if inflation is at 22% and salaries, people are receiving 5% salary increments, then we are doing a disservice to society. We're making it very difficult for households to be able to afford goods and services.
Does a drop in inflation translate to improved living conditions of our people? Does it mean that the cost of living and the cost of commodities is going to reduce?
No, the inflation is the rate at which prices are growing. So when inflation rate drops, it doesn't mean that prices are dropping. What it means that the increase in prices has just reduced the rate at which it's including. So if the price of sugar was 10 kwacha per packet and you only have 8 kwacha, even if inflation reduces to 1%, you have 8 kwacha and sugar is 10 kwacha. So, but the goodness with reduction in inflation rates is that it means the rate at which your salary is growing, if it's higher than the inflation rate, it means that in the long run, your salaries will catch up with the prices, affordability of prices. So here, the issue is that salaries should grow faster than prices are growing.
There's always this argument, Dr. Lubinda Haabazoka, that prices of commodities never go down. What is your perspective on this subject?
Well, if you look at salaries, they don't drop, they don't reduce. And in fact, in the labor law, it's illegal to reduce a salary of an employee. Same with prices, they won't reduce, although we see on very controlled commodities like mealie meal and electricity and fuel prices. Those prices sometimes normally fall because they are indexed to the value of the Zambian kwacha against the US dollar. Those prices normally fall, but in a free market economy, yes, prices fall when price of production or the production cost or the cost of importing goes down. Competition forces prices basically to fall down because when a new player comes in and they are comfortable with a certain profit margin, they'll reduce the prices to capture the market. And also, when others see that, they will equally do the same. That's how prices fall. But where you have positive inflation, prices will forever be growing because positive inflation is telling you that prices are growing.
Let's talk about what really causes the drop in inflation. What would you say normally causes a drop in inflation?
So, what causes a drop in inflation is a drop. So, first, the interpretation is that if every year, for example, prices were growing by 10% and something cost 20, 10 kwacha, it means 10% of 10 kwacha is going to be 11 kwacha the following year. The other year, again, it will grow by 10%. 10% of 11 kwacha is 1.91. It will go to 12.1, just like that. But when inflation reduces to 5%, instead of the next 12.1 kwacha growing by 1.2, it will just grow by half that figure. That is what it means in terms of reduction of inflation. Then the things that cause reduction in inflation rates in Zambia are mostly the exchange rate. Most of the goods and services that we consume are imported, especially goods. So if the Zambian kwacha gains value, meaning you need less kwacha to buy a dollar, so importation costs for even raw materials in industry and for finished goods is going to reduce. And when that reduces, it amounts to reduced prices of imported goods. For example, if you go in the shop and an iPhone is expensive, you can just buy it in Dubai and it will cost you cheaper because the Zambian kwacha is now strong. So when immediately the Zambian kwacha becomes strong, just know that your affordability in terms of imported goods has improved because when you exchange kwacha for dollars, you get less you need less kwacha. So, yeah, and even if the prices in dollar terms remain the same, you still benefit from that.
The kwacha has been one of the best performing currencies in the world the past few weeks. What is prompting the kwacha to perform the way it's performing?
Well, there's so much good news on the macroeconomic, sector in Zambia. First of all, we have foreign exchange reserves above 5.2 billion dollars, and they are poised to further increase. So that boosts confidence in those users of forex in the country that the government has enough forex to be able to satisfy their needs. Two, high metal prices. Copper has reached above 13,000 dollars per ton. Cobalt is beyond $50,000 per ton. All these contribute about 76% of foreign exchange inflows. And in terms of kwacha value, foreign exchange inflows are the major factor. So the kwacha is performing very well. Also, the successful completion of the IMF a package which signals Zambia's going back on a path of economic prudency and reduced wasteful expenditure and other vices that are connected with negative practices of running public finances. So now there's confidence government through, various indicators we are seeing like inflation rate, exchange rates, GDP growth, foreign exchange reserves have basically proven that there's financial prudency, financial discipline, and as such, that has had a positive impact on the value of the Zambian kwacha.
Other economists argue that we must find a way of controlling this continuous appreciation of the kwacha. In fact, others go to extent of saying that this appreciation, if it goes much further, it might hurt the economy. Is it true?
I think those people that are saying that are foreigners and don't live in Zambia because for the benefit of the majority of Zambians, we need a slightly stronger kwacha because if we keep it in check, other currencies in Africa are not keeping themselves in check. They are going with the wind. For example, if the rand becomes more valuable than the kwacha, it means that most of the goods that we import from South Africa are going to be high. So you can be winning against the dollar, but losing against the rand. It means that the inflation will go up high because we consume a lot of rand-dependent products. You have the Shoprites and the other South African brands operating here, and their pricing is based on the rand. So if the rand is strengthening and the kwacha stops strengthening, you are creating yourself problems. So those people that are calling for this haven't looked at the issue structurally.
Well, they argue that a stable exchange rate is better than one that is flip-flopping. Even when the exchange rate is going down, if it's not stable, then it's bad for the economy. Do you think this is a very right argument?
Well, in a market economy, prices of securities and currency are not static. They will always move up and down. So that is basically what is happening with the kwacha. The value of the Zambian kwacha is normally defined by the forces of supply and demand of forex, and also other issues or other factors like opinion, sentiments, moods. It's very difficult. Yes, the stability of exchange rate is very good, but it means the central bank will have to play on the forex market very much by selling or buying forex to maintain its value on the artificial level that you want it to be.
Do we see the kwacha continuing to take the downward trend in terms of its appreciation?
Well, they can continue. The US dollar has also been losing its value in the recent weeks. That is also contributed to, a better kwacha. This might continue, especially from from April, way into June, July, because traditionally that's when mining companies are preparing for large-scale mining, and around June, corporate income tax comes in. So that's why you find that the kwacha might continue gaining, but it needs to gain.
Well, the biggest headline today has been the fact that we have completed an IMF program, and the last disbursement of $1.7 billion has been given to us as a country. But this seems to be much more of an elite discussion. I'd like to find out from you, Dr. Lubinda Haabazoka, what does this IMF program, this completion of an IMF program, mean for an ordinary Zambian who comes from Mutendere, perhaps even who comes from the remotest part of this country?
Well, it means that, in the next 3 to 4 months, you expect the trickle-down effects to come in. It means that government will remain collecting tax revenues because now, with the IMF package came the debt restructuring process, and now it's manageable to service debt, meaning that government, for that woman in Tendere receiving social cash transfer, has resources for them. That school-going children or child that is going for free education is able to access classrooms for free. That grade 12 pupil with no money to pay exam fees. Now government is paying for them. Government is able to sustain that. So the benefits are basically, well, they affect all classes of citizens and all levels of our human interaction in the country.
In your recent article, you argue that the country now has graduated from stabilization now to takeoff, or if you like, to growth. Let's expand on that one, what you really mean.
Yes, because when you look at the IMF package, there were two options of doing debt restructuring. One is going it alone and hoping that the lenders are going to accept that what you are telling them is true, that you'll be able to manage to pay the debt once you restructure. The other one was an IMF supervised debt restructuring process. That gave credibility to the whole process because lenders want to know that if they restructure government debt, government won't go back to its old ways of over expenditure and other fiscal indiscipline and so on and so forth. So with the IMF, fiscal discipline is guaranteed, and the IMF will also put in a word on behalf of the country. So in that particular sense, and also in stabilizing the macroeconomic factors for which the IMF, that's their major function, I think the package has been successful.
Others argue that we mustn't be celebrating this IMF deal because at the end of the day, the $1.7 billion that we've been given as a country is still debt that we must pay back at some point in the future. Why do we still seem to be in a moment of celebrating the IMF deal?
Well, the good news is that the Zambian government wants to also get another package. And after the sixth review, I'm sure every year, by the way, the IMF comes to do country assessments. So if the Zambian government wants to get another package that is aimed at, improving growth, they'll definitely remain fiscally disciplined because they don't want to reappear with new problems when they go to the next progressive, deal with the IMF. So I'm very sure that since we have managed without glitches to move from one assessment to the other successfully, and it means the minister responsible for finance, Bank of Zambia governor, and the presidency are capable of remaining fiscally disciplined, uh, regardless whether the elections or not. And I'm sure you hear people complain. No, the cadres will complain in Chawama. No, we didn't receive money from UPND here. For those in politics, that might be a sad signal because they're not getting money. But for the country, that should be a good signal because it gives confidence that their government is not misusing resources.
Well, the macroeconomic indicators are pointing in the right direction. Earlier on, I did mention that the kwacha has been one of the best performing currencies in the world. Our economy is projected to grow by 5.8% as of end of December. Let's talk about this economic growth of 5.8%. Do you see it as realistic?
Well, uh, it's not debt per se. This money, the IMF will give you money also um, they'll give you money also for balance of payment support. Mind you, when we were defaulted on our debt, we were unable to borrow. We were at pains trying to pay debt. So the resources that they were giving us was to cushion and ensure that we continue importing, exporting, and some of those resources are even in the foreign exchange reserves, so that probably money was misused or just spent anyhow. No, that's not the case. So this is not as debt per se, but this is balance of payment support, which is a function of the IMF.
What exactly are we doing right as a country to record this positive economic growth?
Yes, I think with improved energy supply this year, with improved rainfall compared to last year, we expect growth of the energy sector. New projects are coming in solar. I hope we are going to have a very good harvest. People planted because rains were guaranteed. Um, Rains were guaranteed. So we expect, I think, even it to reach, above 6%. That is basically uh, uh, my thinking. This year, if you look at, for example, mining industry last year, it grew by 8%, just a single sector. For small scale mining, above 60% in terms of production. So the individual sector growth are the ones when put together will show you growth for the whole economy. So with improvement in energy sector, which was a very major factor that was keeping growth behind, I think that we expect to reach even above 5.8%.
In every election year, there's always appetite by the ruling party to abandon, economic programs and finding ways of ensuring that they appease the voters. We've done so much as a country in terms of, economic stabilization, like you rightly, said. Do you think, or do you foresee most of these achievements getting to be undone because of an election year and the ruling party wants to appease or would want to appease the electorates?
Well, I think that we would have already seen projects already coming out, election projects, because government projects take time to implement. So given that the elections will be in August, I think we're going to see that. I don't expect impulse programs to come on board, but I expect just government to consolidate on what they are doing. That is my opinion. I do not see money flying into elections from the coffers. I don't think that will be possible. Probably the funders will be third parties, but not really from government for coffers, because cadres are complaining and they have been complaining. So I'm basing my assessment based from what I know. So in terms of that situation, Zambian citizens, like I've said, should sleep tight knowing that their money is not going to be misused by the ruling party for elections.
The agricultural sector is one of the most important sectors in our country because they employ the majority of the workforce in the country. I'd like to get your perspective of how you think the agricultural sector has performed the past few years.
I think it's just on our part, it's just fiscal discipline, being able to spend within our means, uh, looking at PPPs for major projects instead of government spending, and a good debt restructuring process that has instilled investor confidence into the country. So it's all about economic management. So this one is basically a distinction to the president in terms of economic management. I think he has managed to really stabilize the economy. Now we are looking at growth.
We've obviously recorded a bumper harvest, and government did announce that we are going to export excess maize. There was a different school of thought that came when government announced this position that it was going to take, that instead of us exporting this excess maize, take it into the market so that it pressures the price of milling meal to come down. I'd like to get your view on this argument.
Well, government can export maize only when they have an understanding of what the next harvest is going to be and what they have in the reserves. So looking at 3.6 million, that was basically Zambia could live on that particular harvest without growing maize for an entire year. And knowing that the FRA over procured maize, I think some of the maize needs to be exported so that we can recoup those resources so that they can either be more of a revolving fund or they can go towards supporting farmers to grow more crop. In a market economy, when you have excess, it needs to be exported. But we also, in trying to export, we need to be very clear that we're not suppressing demand. About pushing or flooding the market with maize so that the minimum prices are cheap, I think that is not correct because when you force maize prices to really go down below, you are punishing the very farmer that feeds you. The farmer also needs a good price for their maize. So let's not be selfish as consumers. Let's also ensure that farmers sell their price at something, meaningful so that they can grow food in the next farming season.
Well, the past few years, there's been literally a gold rush in the country because of the discovery of gold in many parts of our country. Just recently, we did see the Zambia army getting to displace illegal miners at Kikongwe, mine in northwestern province and Mufumbwe there. I'd like to find out, on what your take is on how we've handled illegal mining in Zambia.
Well, I think that gold discovery in Zambia is a very good development. That is one. Because gold, if you properly handle gold, for example, the small scale miners will mine the gold, sell to Zambia Gold Company, which is a ZCM owned company. They'll refine it, probably create bullions and send to back of Zambia for stockpiling. It means you are safeguarding the interest of the small scale miner by providing needed business and at better prices. Also, you are safeguarding the country in terms of collecting taxes from the small scale miners and in terms of also that gold benefiting the country through its stockpile at Bank of Zambia. That stockpile can be later used if government wants to iron out volatilities in the foreign exchange market or for any other needs. But if you have illegal miners do not pay tax, they don't practice safe mining practices, they use dangerous substance called mercury, which pollutes the environment. When those illegal miners finish with that area is going to be inhabitable and nobody is going to go and put it back into normal for maybe even agriculture use because it has been heavily destroyed by poor mining activities. Then also these illegal miners are being exploited by foreigners. They are funded by foreigners. You heard the army announce that there were weapons in there, drugs there. So there was nothing a Zambian was benefiting from that illegal mining apart from creating warlords that are going to be even fighting each other for pieces of land because, mind you, when something is illegal, there is no even title deed or demarcations that your land starts here and ends there. So what if another gang just comes in to come and mine? That's when people are going to be shot. When these thugs make money from gold, they'll come and rape your women in the communities because they are now used to lawlessness and they have guns. So I think that the army has better information than all of us, and kudos that they went and swept them out. I think what the army should do should also move to Mbala, Mpika, and other areas in the country, even around Lusaka. There's a lot of thuggerism that is going on. We need to empower our small-scale miners. They have to do things legally. Any legal citizen should not do business illegally because we all are part of this economic family and we need to contribute our fair shares of taxes. Also, but not forgetting that we are the owners of the minerals. So if we don't want foreigners to be doing gold mining, but foreigners are facilitating the mining for illegal miners, then we need to flush the foreigners out. We need to flush the illegal miners out. and bring in people orderly so that they will be made accountable. If there's an accident at the mine, we know who the mine owner is. There's mine safety that is there, safe mining practices and so on and so forth.
Maybe the big question is how then do we make our locals benefit, because majority of these illegal miners that were chased and have been chased across the country are indigenous Zambians. Yes, there are some that are of foreign origin, but the majority of these are our own fellow Zambians that probably are the ones that even discovered this gold that is beneath our soil. How would you recommend that we begin to formalize this business to ensure that even the Zambians themselves benefit of their endowed mineral resource?
I think that when you look at illegal miners, the process of getting artisanal mine licenses is very easy. With the help of a chief, with going to Ministry of Mines, you are easy to get. Maybe there might be hurdles, but where the hurdles, you need to be able to to pass them. So I think, in my own opinion, look, Lubinda Haabazoka is a lecturer, but I can't just go on the street and put stones on Greatest Road and start teaching there as a lecturer, meaning I'm doing things illegally. No, you need to go and register with the Higher Education Authority, university, and start doing things orderly so that students that we are producing are of high quality. Same with illegal miners. I don't think we should be tolerating illegality just because there are citizens involved. Otherwise, the country is going to be a country of lawlessness.
Well, just on this very topic, would you realistically say, Doc, here that these rich endowed mineral resource areas are benefiting off this resource?
Well, if there will be illegal mining happening, then that fair share will never be there. That's why we need a structured process. We don't have a model now that empowers the local miner who discovered that, and how revenue sharing mineral resources can remain in the areas that they are being mined. So I think my agent core is to make sure that everybody is comes on board to develop a model such that monies are going to remain also in the areas and the councils within which those areas are operating. The chiefdoms are able to get those particular resources.
As we conclude, Doc, there's so much that we've achieved as a country in terms of stabilizing the macroeconomic indicators and everything that we've mentioned on the program tonight. How would you advise government to maintain the path that we're on? What must they do for us to continue on this path?
I think maintaining these achievements is all about economic management. So as a country, we need to ensure that we do not change economic development philosophy, and probably keep certain managers for a longer period so that we can see continuity in and protecting the gains that we have made thus far.
Economist Dr. Lubinda Haabazoka, thank you so much for accepting to speak with us on this day tonight.
Thank you very much.